Hello, everyone. I am very excited to welcome Martino Puccio to the channel. You might know him from being an excellent Milan fan, writer, content creator, collaborator. Maybe you saw us together with Giuseppe G Just Juve, or perhaps it's for The Athletic, where he's writing today. He's also got a podcast called The State of Play with our buddy Matt Santangelo. Martino, how you doing today?
Good, good. So happy Serie A's back. Woke up a little early yesterday for that one, but still kind of used to it from the World Cup. But just happy to be here on your channel. Finally get to talk specifically Milan Roma because Beppe always has us discussing different types of things, but the center of focus today are these two clubs.
True. Now we just get our two clubs, and it hasn't been the best history for the Giallorossi in the past season. You and I, before we went on air, we were looking at the last two fixtures. Milan wins both of them in Rome and Milan, and actually they score 5 goals between those two matches. I think the first question, and before I get to that question, I just want to look at that statistics we have here on the bottom. Milan undefeated in 30 of their last 32. Is this a great team or a really good team, Martino?
I mean, so Serie A purposes, it's a great team. For me, I always define a great team by trophies. They won the title. Are they a dynasty? No, I think dynasty is like a little too far. I think that's the next level. I think it's a great team. I think they've shown it ever since the COVID restart back in 2021. And one of those first few matches was against Roma at the time. And many people remember, yourself included, that Roma was giving a lot of fits to Milan's over the 2010 decade. I mean, we could not beat you. Like from time to time, we'd put in a good performance at home, but our worst era was one of your better eras in Serie A, and it was really tough to face Roma at times. But now it kind of switched on its head and fast. I mean, you guys had to have a lot of sales, and Milan took a different approach, the direction that they're going in. Super young squad, but again, 30 out of 32 in Serie A without losing is incredible, especially when it's against Napoli, who was undefeated until yesterday. And of course, it's Spezia because of Spezia does whatever they want, I guess, in those categories. They almost beat Atalanta yesterday, but I think it's a great team in the sense of Serie A. Like they're finishing top 2. They win the title last year, and they're very hard to beat, regardless home or away. They were one of the great road teams in Serie A history the past 2 seasons, especially when you go by the 3-point era. So we'll see what happens this season. There's a lot of games left, but I do think it's a great team in that sense.
And when you talk about that chemistry in which it takes for a great team to be made, there's typically 1, 2, maybe 3 players who take you over the hump. And I try to think of, that cast that Milan has right now, and Maldini has worked very hard assembling this. But if you had to pick maybe 1 or 2, what is Milan's X factor? What takes them over the hump and allows them to win titles?
I think at this point it's really just Rafael Leao. Like the player that he's risen to is kind of parallel to the way the team has ascended. Were there ups and downs in his first season? Yes, very similar to having Gianpaolo in there. Pioli comes in, it's a 5-0 defeat. It was probably one of the lowest moments of the Banta era for Milan fans. Was when they lost to Atalanta 5-0. That infamous Gasperini dancing meme that I like to put every time they drop points. I forgot yesterday now that I think about it. But we saw that improvement in that year that Inter won the title with Conte. They were going toe to toe with them in the Scudetto race up until February, and then Inter were clearly the better side that season. But there was improvement from him, and then you see it again last year. Kind of slow start first half of the year, and then by far exploded as the best player in the league in the second half. Taking over matches single-handedly. We saw it yesterday again as well against Salernitana. This is a player that's approaching his prime. He still needs to round out that finishing, but Milan's attack is nothing without Rafael Leao. Make no mistake about that. Teo Hernandez link-up is incredible. I think that's what makes them one of the best duos the league has seen in a very long time, specifically on the left side. But truly, I think it's him. There's obviously different players you could look at. Benacer, Mike Magnon, I think it has been one of the better goalkeepers, but I've never seen someone so injury prone in a position that has you moving very little compared to the other positions on the field. And then I would say Benacer. I mean, Benacer is everything at this point. You lose Frank Kessie like that, I think he's the best defensive midfielder that they have. He's the most experienced one. But Leao's got to be at the top for me.
You know what is so unique about Leao is he reminds me of that like highest echelon of players that when they dribble, they look like they glide. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I always say he's like a gazelle. The way he sprints and glides past you is just phenomenal. And it's Salernitana was approaching him 1v1 yesterday. I never see like you're a relegation side basically. I know they're mid-table right now, but like you have the talent of a relegation side. You have to do everything to stop that man. You can like Salamakers was doing nothing. Good. You only need to face him one-on-one, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
You double him. You face him the way Inter face him, the way you guys face him at times. You cannot allow him to be one-on-one. There isn't a defender in world football that can stop him one-on-one right now in open space. And that's a legitimate statement. That's not an exaggeration. Like you see Inter double him with Skriniar, whether it's Bastoni, whether it's their wingbacks, if it's Darmian and their Dumfries. Like they have to do that. And Chelsea did the same. Like people were talking about when Milan faced Chelsea. Yeah, Reece James was isolated. And when he was isolated, Leao dribbled past him. It was their wingback system with Fofana, and Rudiger and not Rudiger, and Thiago Silva and other players that were there to help stop him. You cannot do this one-on-one.
It makes it almost even that much more insane that Portugal decided not to start him throughout the World Cup.
I mean, I'm sure you could have your Fernando Santos fans on here if you want to, because there's a lot of critics of him and his decision making. And we'll be honest, I mean, Leao scored 2 goals in under 90 minutes. If there wasn't enough proof then there wasn't going to be, because that's just the way Fernando Santos rocked with his decisions.
And we'll be getting back to Leao, I think, towards the end of this. And I wanted to ask you, we were looking at the differences between these two legs last season. Roma loses both. Mentioned Milan puts 5 past Roma, past Rui Patricio. And they've been very much on the back foot. Not only are they losing, but they're also, as Roma has been doing since Mourinho started, holding very little possession. But possession is difficult to be without when you need a goal. And it's that point where you have to be able to turn it on and start to control your own destiny in a way. But Roma really looked unable over the last 2 legs last season. I know El Shaarawy gets a goal towards the end of the second leg there, and Roma tries to come to life. But is this very much the same Milan? Are they better or worse to what we saw and to what I still have nightmares about Leao ripping up my flanks? What are the differences?
I think the Kessie difference is substantial. This is not as strong of a defense as we saw last year. Whatever, injuries are injuries. Roma have their share of them. Tons of clubs do. Milan do rank at the top though. But I do think having a loss like that, he's such a stout defensive player. Tonali and Benacer operate in that double pivot, but it's clear that Tonali moves closer to goal as of late. We saw it towards the end of last year. Lazio, Verona, even yesterday against Salernitana, where this was met with some negativity, I guess, by some fans saying that it's not all goals and assists, but it is a staggering thing that a player like that lining up in a pivot 2 is scoring and assisting. I think that says a lot. I think Leao's a better player than he was then. And again, that El Shaarawy goal was, after a red card, and that was right towards the end of the match. So Milan were playing up a man in that one. I remember it. It was a very intense atmosphere because Zlatan was getting some gypsy chants, and that was unfortunate. Like that surmises a Serie A amazing match, but taken over by something that didn't happen on the field. For me, I think this Roma side is a little different too. I mean, you have a healthier Zaniolo. We think, because apparently he's supposed to be playing Sunday now that I see him and Dybala.
He'll be there.
So the both of them. I mean, listen, you play counter-attacking football. I think Milan could be exposed in that sense. But athletically, I think we're far better in that category, especially at the center back position as well. We have 2 guys that are speedsters. I think it's going to happen on the left side. Pellegrini has to kind of take over this sort of match. I think you match up very well centrally. As far as flanks go, I'll be honest, like Spinazzola, I love him. I think he's great. You're not going to be the same player that you once were with that type of injury. But if Roma can't slow down the flanks, it's going to be a tough time again, because you got to hope they have Milan have a poor finishing match like they did yesterday, and they're capable of having that. They blow so many opportunities. It should have been 7-1. If Roma can limit those chances and hope Milan don't, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank here, a brain fart on the word, but if they don't take advantage of these chances and be clinical, capitalize. Yeah. Thank you. That's why you're a teacher. But at the same time, if they're not being clinical enough like that, then Roma's going to have their opportunity. But again, Milan at home, Roma, it's Zaniolo and Dybala are healthy, but is it a 90 minutes? I think Roma need a 90 minutes away to win in this one. Because it's going to be that tough. What happened with Karsdorp again? Is he leaving? Is he starting in this one? Because I know his whole situation is crazy.
Karsdorp is probably as good as gone.
Okay.
Now we have Salik, who came over from Lille this past summer.
Right. So you're defending Rafael Leao. So what's happening there? Who's the number 10 for Milan? Is it Brahim Diaz? Do they have De Ketelare in there? And again, we're talking about very interesting dynamics here with managerial stuff. Pioli and Mourinho have to deal with a very condensed schedule in multiple competitions. We have Coppa Italia starting within the next 10 days or so. So that's obviously something in the back of their minds. And two clubs like this, they want to go for it. Mourinho won a trophy, Conference League, it's great. But Roma, come on, they want to win Coppa Italia. There's something else. There's something domestic that they want to pull off here. It's going to be 15 years now. I believe was the 2008 Coppa Italia that you won. So I know that my whole family are Roma fans, which for people who don't know. So I follow you guys close enough. And I think
how does that happen? That your whole family is Roma fans?
Well, I will preface by saying that one of my uncles is a Lazio fan, so they were all Roma fans, and he's spurned that way. It was never of that you have to watch Roma in this. Like I was getting Inter kits when they went to Italy. I was getting Ronaldo jerseys and all that kind of stuff. For me, there was never that sentimental attachment with them. I love Totti. I always am Totti over Del Piero, if that matters. But there needs to be that emotional attachment. Again, for prefacing, my whole family are Yankees fans. I am a Mets fan. My whole family like the Steelers and the Giants. I like the Jets. Everybody doesn't watch basketball, so I like the Celtics, but I live in New York. So I'm not a by-the-book kind of guy per se. But yeah, I mean, I think Milan are a little bit worse defensively to answer that question, and I think they can be had. There is a lot of individual quality on this Roma side. And we'll see what Tammy does. Tammy has been, for my money, probably the most disappointing forward in Serie A this year. He really has. When you come down to performance last year, relative to his pay, and what the expectations are and output, it's been disappointing to see Tammy like this because he's far better of a player. I know you had some choice words for him when we were talking. I won't repeat. But I think it's got to take someone like that to finish off the chances. It's there. Zaniolo, Pellegrini, Tammy, and Dybala is fantastic talent. That's enough to win. But
it is if everyone's mentally there. And when I look at Milan, as you're mentioning, is a little bit tougher in a defensive. I'm sorry, a little bit weaker defensively. And can Abraham take advantage of that? I want to see the Abraham of which I know that he can be, because at times I've seen him almost look distracted throughout this season. And that right there, I think is a subplot to this game, is Milan's defensive weaknesses, or at least let's not say weakness, but I think not regularity, but perhaps not averageness, but perhaps a little bit vulnerability. Here we go. We're helping each other out.
Yeah, exactly.
Their vulnerability, can that match up? And how does that coincide with Abraham's up and downs this season with his inconsistent form, right? Now that the World Cup is over and he doesn't have Southgate's decisions looming over his head, now that he's got his buddy Dybala back, does that make a difference? And then you could probably also add to that he's not going to have too much, or at least his rivals, I think there's a much harder line. I think going into the season, there was this duality between Belotti and Abraham and who would be starting, would they be interchanging? That doesn't really seem to be the case for Roma's side. It seems to be all Abraham. Now, against Bologna, though, he did not start. Zaniolo started. I don't expect to see that again. I think it'll be Tammy from the start. But I think that right there is going to be, like I said, a subplot, and I want to see how that one unfolds.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Continue. No, go for it.
Especially with Leao and Salik. Salik hasn't played a lot, yet you're going up last year's league MVP. What happens there?
And he's better. Yeah.
It's tough. I mean, Leao is I don't know, top 3 wingers in the world. Like, maybe top 5.
I think top 5 left wing is just
Left wing.
What Vinny is at the
Vinicius.
moment, and Neymar, if you want to put him there, if Mbappe's on the left side, like
If Mbappe's, yeah.
There's a lot of quality within it. I know some people still go with Sané at Bayern. I'm not of the belief of that.
No.
If you want to go Sadio Mane, I think Salah, if you go total wingers, Salah would have to be up there. But like Leao, I mean, listen, there isn't anybody to stop this man on one-on-one, and I firmly believe that. He's still massive too. He's stronger, and he's a great passer with both feet. He's right-footed. He's assisting on his left foot most of the time. You see, Roma fans, you love Lazio losing. Watch every game of Rafael Leao versus Lazio, and you see the destruction. He tried crossing the ball on his left foot, and he ended up scoring by accident. If anyone remembers that in Coppa Italia, you look up that goal. But you're right, though. It's like you have to shut that down. Oh, and by the way, it's Theo Hernandez behind him. Good luck. And then you have to man mark Olivier Giroud. There's so many different intricacies within the tactics that you have to worry about. So like certain players on Roma have to sacrifice now because they're going to need help doubling Rafael Leao. Oh, and if Leao is doubled, then what's happening centrally? Is it CDK? Is it Brahim Diaz? Diaz is playing a lot better than he did last year. He's actually being pretty productive. And he has the capability throughout some of these matches where he's going to make it tougher on you. And if the Roma team has to work harder without the ball, as we know, they're going to be deeper when it comes to counterattacks. You want at least some of your players closer to the goal on those counterattacks so you can catch them fast. If Milan don't have to worry about that, and if Roma's sitting back, Milan have the recovery speed. They have more depth in this situation as well. I think that's kind of what hurts Roma. And you speak to the mental point. That's what you're paying Mourinho for. He's supposed to have Tammy online. I know there's people out there that don't want to hear this Mourinho stuff, but it's mostly his fans. But to call a spade is this. Wayne, you guys are getting help from Spurs paying Mourinho top dollar. And right. Mourinho is getting paid to do that. Has he delivered? Yeah, kind of. But is the expectation top 4? I think that's still a bit too much for Roma, and it's nothing against them. I don't even think it's their fault. They don't have the squad for that. Not yet.
Not yet.
But I would say like next year would be a window where you push for that, depending on what happens with Dybala. But 19 goals so far is middle of the pack. There needs to be goals. They need to be scoring. I like what they're doing with the youth system, but and again, Roma struggle against the top sides. They have to start. They have to start beating them. I think a good result for you guys would be a draw here. If you win, that's incredible. I think it would be an incredible result for Roma.
Win at the San Siro against a team that's only lost twice out of the last 30.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not expecting it. I'm more calm about Milan games these days than I used to be. I'll say that, but
Roma did win at the San Siro against Inter though earlier in the season, which
I mean,
could say something about that. And they just beat the first place team in the league.
Inter is either winning or losing. Still the only team in the top 5 leagues to not draw a match in the league.
Wow.
Which is I was looking it up this morning. Inter have no draws. I was like, I wonder who else. It's nobody. Inter have 5 losses. They either win or they lose at this point. But yeah.
Crazy. Inter is always nuts. Pazza Inter. So could you say that I think I have an idea of what Mourinho is going to do tactically. Okay. And I think that Zaniolo will start on the right and he will double up because on his day, Zaniolo is dependable defensively, which is something I did not anticipate coming into the season, but it's something which I have seen. How does Pioli line up?
I think he's just going to go with the same. Just for me, it's well, the goalkeeper situation is very interesting. So we have Tatarosanu, who by all accounts almost helped you guys in that February match years ago. That we were referring to. Milan did end up winning that, but this guy is susceptible to having some of the biggest mistakes. And they somehow find out that he has sight issues not too long after signing him. So apparently he has vision issues as well, on top of being terrible. So we'll see what happens. They signed a goalkeeper named Devis Vasquez. He's a Colombian goalkeeper. He comes from the Paraguayan league. He had some bureaucratic issues, and he's supposed to land tomorrow, Friday, in Milan. This match is going to be in Milan, and he's apparently supposed to be at Pioli's disposal. So with that, we'll see what happens at the goalkeeper position. Again, we said you can get away with it against Salernitana, but a quality side like Roma, there's going to be, you guys are good on set pieces. Milan stink at set pieces. I think that's an opportunity for Roma to capitalize on if they end up doing it. But I think Pioli is just going to line up the same. I think you see Salamakers within this one. Someone who's really going to be giving a hard time to the players out wide. They're just going to need some elite work rate out of them. Centrally now, I think Pioli goes with trust. And Brahim Diaz has showed up and he's played well. I think he rocks with him at the number 10 position. You're going to see Giroud line up top, and then Rafael Leao in usual business at the back four with Teo, with Tomori, with Kalulu, and Davide Calabria. I mean, we'll see. I think Milan have everything they need to, and obviously Pioli and Tonali. Bennacer and Tonali. Is a formidable duo within this league. So, I mean, that's really just upon how Roma handles the center of the park, because I think the flank is in Milan's advantage. And if Milan have the advantage centrally, it's going to be really hard for Roma to win this one. But again, football is football.
It is. Ball rolls both ways. And given that Tonali is developing into this very strong center midfielder, one of the better ones in the league, what do you think happens on the international stage? How, in the next 4 years, we've got the Euro coming up again in 2 years. We've got the next World Cup, which Italy must qualify for, or else, I don't know, change
more
government.
teams this time. More teams this time, though, so less likely to lose out. Listen,
is he a protagonist?
I think he should be. I already thought he was going to be a protagonist prior to the Euro. Not for that Euro, but I'm saying, like, after this Euro, you have to call him up. Like, there's players that were getting spots and shouts for him, like Pessina. No disrespect to him, he had an important role in the Euro. But if I had the choice between the two, regardless of age, give me Tonali, right?
Yeah.
I think you still there's so much talent, there's so much depth regarding this Italian side. You see Jorginho probably phased out. Verratti, this is probably his last major tournament, but he's probably going to be there for the World Cup. You have your guy Pellegrini, who I think he deserves that seniority over a guy like Tonali, even though I would understand if Tonali got a nod over him depending on the formation. But Barella and Verratti right now should be locks. And I think Locatelli has earned it, even though, again, Pellegrini and Tonali are better. They're better Serie A players. And I think what Locatelli was doing within that formation and how well he played at the Euro, I understand that as well. But Tonali has to be in the mix for these conversations. He has to start games for them. He is too versatile. I think he's by far, I would also say Pellegrini's versatile like that, but I think he's better forward, Tonali better more defensively. But you have to have this guy in the lineup. There isn't an athlete, as far as midfielders go, for Italy that's going to be playing. This guy is a physical beast. He runs faster than any midfielder in the league. He runs as fast as some forwards. Okay, it's like 33 kilometers an hour.
Wow.
Or whatever it was. He gets time that. He is a physical freak. But I hope that role is there. He's great on set pieces as well. Like, you could have your choice of set pieces between Pellegrini and Tonali is great on corners, on free kicks, whether you want direct free kicks to take or cross them in. I mean, there's just so many options for the Mancini in this. I'm interested to see how it develops, because I think at one point, I don't think Italy can rock with the wingers. I don't think it's beneficial for Chiesa and Zaniolo. I think if Chiesa and Zaniolo have better work rate centrally behind a striker, I think that's something that we could see, because they're both coming off of ACL injuries. It's very difficult to. I know Zaniolo is further removed, but that's two, and Chiesa has one. It's a lot. It just really depends on all that. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but it's just
no. I like hearing you speak.
It has to be on.
I'm intrigued.
Well, because
Yeah.
there's so many different ways Italy can go about these things, and that's what happens when you have depth. But for me, it's funny because I think the two factors are Zaniolo and Chiesa, because Italy does not score goals. We see it, okay? Whether they're free from the penalty spot or it's open play, they are not scoring. They have to put the best players possible for that. And is having an abundance of midfielders necessarily helping? Yes and no, but it depends on how you line up. Zaniolo, if we have these guys wide, they're working harder. That means less goals for them. We don't want them to have that work rate. We don't want more stress on their legs. We want them to create. Zaniolo has to be a better finisher. He has to be. He is so good at creating, and he's still so good. It's still surprising after 2 ACLs that he's still there. You still see that shiftiness. That's something that usually gets lost with these injuries. Maybe it'll age poorly over time in terms of physique, like he can't handle it as much. And I see Mourinho, personally, I'm not a Roma fan, but I get annoyed when he plays him too much, because it's like, can we slow down a little bit? Like, this kid never gets a breather. Mancini, oh, you're called up immediately. Second torn ACL. Stop. He doesn't have to play every Europa League, Coppa Italia. I understand where Roma is at as a squad in terms of depth. Slow down. Because you know what's worse than a limited Zaniolo? No Zaniolo.
Right.
So you have to prevent yourself and put your best foot forward when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, at least our guy Scamacca scored yesterday, so it looks like he's improving.
Yeah, Scamacca, I think, is the way forward at number 9.
I agree with
you. And you get like Chiesa and Zaniolo behind him in some way or another. Like you said, maybe not necessarily the wings, but then you get a tough guy like Tonali, maybe paired with Barella or even Verratti if he's still coming into the frame. And I like that ruggedness. I like what Tonali provides and that muscle. You speak about him being like this athletic freak of nature. And Italy needs those guys, because when I think of the Italy that has crashed out of tournaments as contrasted against those which have gone on to win gold, I see prima donna. Like, I see a lot of softness in the team. Excuses and guys that think that it's owed to them, rather than people who want to get stuck into tackles. Guys like De Rossi, who I remember, who was a young guy, maybe 20, 21 when he won the World Cup. I think he was 21 years old.
Yeah, 21.
And he brought that edge, and that allowed guys like ADP and Totti and Luca Toni to go up and do their thing, and they knew exactly what to do. So in a way, he makes me reminisce about the players of the past, and also that tough mentality.
He's got that. That's why Gattuso was his idol. That's why the players that he looked up to.
He is much more Gattuso than Pirlo.
The Pirlo stuff today, it was even John Corsaro, a good Roma fan, loved him, but he was like telling me, like, I was professing like Tonali is like Pirlo. The only thing that they're close and similar to is that they play for Brescia, had long hair. Tonali's gotten a little bit shorter, but at the same time, they're just good on set pieces. Pirlo could only hope and wish to have the type of athletic ability Tonali had. Whereas Tonali also wishes he had the passing ability that Pirlo had, even though he's a solid passer. He's nothing extraordinary. But when you have the technical ability to move forward, Tonali is Tonali. He is unique in his own way. I'm serious when I say this. He has some qualities of other Italian midfielders over the years, but I have yet to see one in my life that has the type of quality overall, physically and technically, that Tonali has. I don't think I've seen it. Maybe I know De Rossi was physically dominant, but as fast as him, no. I would say stronger, better passing ability as well. But no, moving forward, I haven't seen this. I mean, no, it's truly special. And again, he's 22, and I'll say to this point, there hasn't been a player, in my opinion, in my eyes, that I've seen have more pressure on him coming up as a youth, as a midfield. The comparisons were immediate. They were immediate. Italy's best ever midfielder, and you, kid, go for it. And that's what it was.
And I think when he joined Milan, what was he, 19?
He just turned 20.
Just turned 20.
When that happened. He was 20 throughout the whole season.
But because of that price tag and the way that Italian media behaves,
and you go to Milan.
You go to Milan, and there's this expectation that you're going to be automatically the starting number 8, and that's not fair. That's not how development works, man.
Well, that's what I was saying. Why do you think I fight people over Charles de Ketelare almost every single week? We're talking about a kid who's been here for 6 months. Same
Yeah,
price tag as Leao and Tonali, by the way. The initial price tag goes up to 35 million euro. Milan and Tonali worked that down to a lower figure, but the point remains the same. One guy's 21 years old, just like Leao and Tonali at the time. Was the expectations high? Yes, because you go and play for Milan. Anytime you're purchased at a club. Bertolacci had incredibly high expectations when he goes there as well. It doesn't.
forgot about him.
I mean, even Roma has a similar thing on a scale, though, right? Because if you play for Roma, whether the pressure is internationally nowhere near as big as Milan, but within Italy, within the city of Roma, the expectations are absurd, and that's why I think a lot of teams like Roma have tough times getting over the hump because of the local expectations. Whether it's fair or unfair is a different
Massive.
conversation. It's whether it's fair or unfair is a different conversation. But this is why Milan has done better than anyone has in Italy by far in bringing along their youth and having that culture where you're allowed to develop and get better. The pressure comes from outside. If you're able to block that out and have headphones like this where you hear nothing, right? That helps. And I think that's why having Paolo Maldini is the most important thing that the club has ever had. Because Galliani working on the types of deals that he used to work on, it wasn't substantial. It doesn't work. It was a tired process that was outdated for years. And when you don't have competition in the 80s and 90s and even the early 2000s for players, this is what happens. You overpay and you get bad assets, and it becomes a snowball effect in which you have to dig yourself out of this hole. Like Roma had to dig themselves out of that hole financially. But I'll tell you what, Tonali is special, and he's just 22, and he's already a Serie A champion. For perspective, Pirlo just had one by the time he was 30, and he didn't get his second until he went to the second was with Milan until his early 30s, and then he transferred over to Juve.
Racked him up.
Exactly, and then it's providing the context for that is like, hey, it's not easy to do this. It's not easy to do this with the youngest team ever in the 3-point era to win the title, and it's certainly not easy when the expectations are with Milan. For me, it's like if you can get over that hump, then you can do anything, and that applies to any player in most big clubs or relatively big clubs. If you get over the most difficult mental hurdles, like say even Tammy Abraham right now, if Tammy is able to get past this and he starts scoring goals, then Tammy doesn't need anything else. Everyone knows that the most difficult league to score in, even when players come here, Cristiano Ronaldo admitted to it, it's the toughest league to score in. If Tammy is capable of doing that and getting over that hump, then you're good. Same can go for Zaniolo as well. And Roma have that manager, and it seems like he's dedicated because he rejected the Portuguese job. So, I mean, we'll see, man. I hope Tonali has a role in that because Italy do have a chance to win the Euro. I believe that.
Yeah, and he's got to be there. And you mentioned somebody who's put Milan together, and that's Maldini, right? Is he going to be swapping, making moves? You know, what's going on with January?
I'll say this. When you think you know about Milan, you don't. And that's the most important thing. I've been playing a lot of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, so Socrates has been mixed in there. So I've been going back on the philosophy things. But it's true. Almost every single time since Maldini, Masada, your guy from Roma, they took over and they had this relationship. Their roles and the information, the way the media has information is lacking. We don't see it. We rarely see them write on anything. It's radio silence often. We don't hear about anything until afterwards. Like Devis Vasquez. Nobody knows who he is.
No idea.
You didn't know. I don't know. I'm not going to lie to you. The guy is playing in the Paraguayan League. Do I have Paraguayan friends? Yes. Do they know who he was? Yeah, because it's the Paraguayan League. And a couple of Colombian friends as well knew who he was. But that's the type of deals that they move. Leao was a move made like that. Even the Tonali deal, people didn't know that it got worked down to 15 million. My question is this, and we don't know because this is Redbird's first market, the new owners. What's the deal?
No idea.
Nobody knows. It was
no precedent.
It was Milan's not investing in players. 2 hours later, that report came from Sky. 2 hours later, Milan signed a goalkeeper. So they don't know. Yeah. I think ultimately what I see happening is if an opportunistic signing is there in Milan's expertise of give us this loan with an obligation a la Tamori, or Rafael Leao and Ismail Benacer renewals. If you get those renewals done and they're locked in, and Milan's keeping two of the best players in Serie A for the next 4 to 5 years, that's good enough for a lot of fans, because they know at the end of the day, there's no stadium. Serie A still has camera angles in Spezia, Atalanta that look like they're at your local high school. The fact is, fiscally, this league is not moving forward. Unfortunately, what happens here is we're going to have to hope for good Swiss ramble threads every year to hope that the club is improving, which they are. But again, come on.
I explain this when people are like, "Oh, Serie A is, insert any adjective you want." I'm like, "Yo, you got to understand. There's red tape which holds stadiums from being built back. If you don't have good stadiums, the spectacle is not great. If the spectacle is not great, media companies don't want to invest a lot. If they don't want to invest, then that money does not go into the teams. Look at the media right packages that the EPL gets, and they do it all correctly.
College basketball prices go. We're talking about one of the best 5 leagues in the world. If you want to preface by, or if you want to, push us as the third, I don't think so. I said we would be 4th. I think we're just a step behind Bundesliga just because of what Bayern accomplishes. You have to win a Champions League. It's been 13 years, guys. Enough of the bullshit. So I apologize for cursing, but it's a tired subject. Our best moment has been you guys making the semifinals.
Yeah.
Great moment. Kind of embarrassing for Serie A if we're talking about the.
And we should have been in that final against Real Madrid. I'll never get over that.
I'm not over the 2015 Mets. That's and on the grand scheme, no one gives a crap. But but you're right though. You deduce it the right way. If we can't get TV deals, if Roma's stadium's half empty or has pitchforks outside, how are we supposed to do anything? If Milan and Inter are in the same stadium that was built prior to World War II, what do you want from us? What are we supposed to do? There's 2 teams within this league that have their own stadium. I believe might be 3 now after Atalanta, because that's why they had to play their Champions League matches at San Siro.
The Gevis, the J Stadium,
Udinese, and then Juve.
And Mappe, Sassuolo.
Do they own that?
I believe Sassuolo owns that. I don't know if that belongs to the city, but they have the naming rights on it.
We named one top team.
Yeah.
The rest are respectable, notable Serie A sides. But where the state of Serie A is, we need both Roma clubs. We need both Milan clubs. We need Napoli to move forward with theirs. We need Fiorentina. Apparently, it's under construction, or they're trying to get late ground. Who knows? It's worse than the state of New Jersey when it comes to this stuff, and you would know firsthand. Okay?
Unfortunately.
Think about that. We make New Jersey look pristine in terms of development. Even New York. New York's even worse than anyone else, right, in the country when it comes to just getting things across the line.
Yeah.
We can't do that as a league. And the potential is so sky high. It's not even funny. We should, seriously, there's no club on the planet that has the historical significance of the major 3 that Serie A does. And then also, to boot, teams like Roma and Napoli are incredible. That's more of a spectacle when their fans are out there in the Champions League than it is when I'm watching West Ham. No offense.
Of course.
Do they have great fans? Do they have a great... Come on. Tomori's saying it. If you're not interested in it, Players Tribune, Tomori has an article, a video and an interview that he does. So again, he's just prefacing by saying he played matches everywhere in the Premier League. He played for Chelsea, Champions League nights. He knows what it's like. He grew up in that youth system. He talked about when Milan is playing against Atletico Madrid and how many goosebumps you get, how the hair on your arms starts to stand up just by being in that stadium when they're not even in a semi-final. They're in just a group stage match. The potential is limitless, and this is why you see investors coming in at
defying the odds,
pennies on the dollar,
investing.
Santangelo and I discussed this today, actually, on the State of Play. So funny enough, we said Ronaldo's contract with Al Nassr, 200 million euro per season. Fiorentina was sold for 180 million euro to Rocco Commisso. You do the math, ladies and gentlemen. You tell me how close we are. Yeah. MLS, to get in the league, to have a team, you need $300 million, US dollars.
So that's the franchise buy-in now?
That's the franchise buy-in. Okay, well, also it makes a lot of sense considering where the values of these teams will be, especially by 2026 will be incredible. Yeah. But again, the point remains, though. Come on.
Yep.
Something's got to give. We'll see. I'm rooting for Roma in the sense of get that stadium, please.
Yeah.
Please,
Oh,
it's
I'm
gonna help
positive
everybody.
about it. It will
Well,
help everyone, gives jobs to everybody around the city, makes, like I said,
they're
the
doing
spectacle.
they're doing this in Milan. They're like, stay at San Siro. What do you need other? I don't know, guys. Let me ask you this question. Are Milan and Inter as big as they should be or as big as the other clubs that they were 20 years ago? The answer is no. And
No.
what's part of the reason why? It's because you won't allow a stadium to be built because you're arrogant and stubborn like Italians usually are. And they're forcing them to put themselves maybe in a project in Sesto, is the rumor. But I'm tired of the rumors. You're
Yeah.
tired of the rumors.
Get to
We're
work.
all tired of it. We're just
Get the shovels in the ground.
the shovels in the ground. Put a helmet on Maldini. Put a helmet on Totti. Have Totti back, laying the groundwork. Seriously,
Yeah.
like that's what it's gonna have to take from me because I do want that. I do want that for Napoli. I want that for Roma. I want it, even if it is Inter. Like we need that. We need that. We have to. It's the only way forward. Does that happen, Wayne? I don't know. Probably not by the World Cup. What Italy does need is the Euro. They need an international competition that's going to help fund the stadiums because they keep on pushing it back. I think 2032 is what they're hoping for because they didn't go for 2028, I believe. They backed out of that one. So 2032. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to even think like that. But there's a lot of work to be done. But before we can get the shovels in the ground and get Totti his parking spot at the Stadio della Roma, these are the live standings. Napoli 42, Milan 36. At the end of Sunday night, how many points does Milan have?
I say 39.
39 goes for the win.
I just because we're at home, I actually do think like if this was away, I think Roma could get a result out of this. I don't think I don't see Roma winning at all. But I could see a draw with the way Milan finished chances or lack of finishing chances. I could see that happening. I really do. But damn, bro, 19 goals so far, like that's not enough. Milan's a very good side. Like you gotta have multiple goals. If Roma were to get a result, they have to get multiple goals. Otherwise, it's a 1-1 draw. That's the only way. I do see this being a 2-1 Milan, though.
Okay. So Martino's got 2-1. This has been really, really good. Guys, give it a thumbs up. Go check out Martino. Martino's socials are all over. You just Google Martino Puccio, and I'm sure a ton of stuff will come up. Promote yourself, Martino.
Yeah, just at Martino Puccio most places. If you Google me, unfortunately, I've been trying to get rid of it for so many years, but I have to get out in front of it like Greg Berhalter got out in front of his situation. There is an old MySpace selfie of me. If you ever see it when I'm like 10, 11 years old, I take a selfie with this old camera and I have a Mets shirt on, but I had the sleeve rolled. It's the most Italian-American late 2000s picture that you'll ever see.
Sounds like it's got a future meme.
I am so shocked no one has grabbed it or it's there every time you Google me. It's further on down now as more work I do gets to the forefront. Thank God. That's not the main reason why I've been doing it, to bury that picture. I can't get my MySpace login. But yes, Martino Puccio, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. What else? And TikTok if you're interested in following TikTok. But I don't know what the crowd is on here. The older crowd, probably not. But yeah.
And cutest dog on Calcio Twitter.
Thank you. Yeah, Ivy. She's resting in her room. I gotta go feed her after this. But yes. Thank you so much for having me. Always love these discussions. I have to talk to you after this ends because nothing is official yet. But I'll ask you about something pertaining on coming on to the state of play and other things again. But
sounds good.
Thanks so much for having me, brother.
Bye, guys.